Good day, everyone. I am Kyreen Ching, a student of Batangas State University, currently taking Bachelor of Science in Tourism Management. The reason that I'm doing this video recording is because I want to share some knowledge about how to eliminate the risk and hazard. And why we should talk about this topic is because risk and hazard might encounter in our home, in a public places, and even in our workplace.
In this video, we're going to look at how to implement a process for hazard identification, risk assessment and control to effectively manage workplace and safety hazard within the organization by involving the participation of workers and as applicant for representatives as according to hazard identification and assessment of risk and opportunities. Now, we're going to identify what is a hazard control. A hazard control program consists of all steps necessary to protect workers from exposure to a substance or system. The training and the procedures required to monitor worker exposure and their health to hazards such as chemicals and materials or substance or other types of hazards such as noise and vibrations. While risk assessment, to improve a safety in a facility, you need to understand the address and safety issues. A standardized way to get this understanding and create effective improvements is a risk assessment. The same general approach can be used for most types of safety issues.
What is risk and hazard? A hazard is defined as something that can cause harm, while risk is the chance, a high or low, that any hazard will actually cause somebody harm. For example, hazard could include working with heavy machineries, using chemicals at work, a poorly set up of workstation or strained office relationships. And what is the purpose of hazard? So basically, a hazard is potential for harm or an adverse effect. For example, to people as an health effect, to organizations as property or equipment losses, or to the environment. And why is it important to know about the hazard and risk? By identifying the hazards, assessing the risk involvement, and then controlling or eliminating this risk, the consequences and or likelihood that illnesses, the injury, and death are reduced.
Now, we're going to observe the typical day in a hotel. Everything seems okay, but inside there's an incident that are happening, such as slips, walking on a surface with ice, spills, oils, and loose materials, walking on slippery surfaces like polished stone, tile, and finished concrete, walking on loose rugs, wearing shoes without slip-resistant soles, trips, uneven walking on surface, changes in elevation, no observing steps, platforms, and doors threshold, obstruction in walking area like open drawers, holes, trash, or electrical wires, not using handrail stairs, and walking in areas with poor lighting. Now, we realize something that we need to implement to control and prevent the similar incident from happening again. In this video, we're going to review how to identify hazard, prevent, and minimize such incident. The process for hazard identification should determine proactively all sources, situation, and the acts arising from the organization activities with the potential for harm in terms of injury or health. Now, we will look at the types of hazard in the workplace. Hazard identification should consider the different types of hazards in the workplace, including physical, example, slips, trips and falls, entanglement, noise, vibration, and harmful energy sources. Chemical, example, inhalation, contact with, or ingestion of chemicals. Biological, example, contact with allergens, pathogens, such as bacteria or viruses. Psychological, example, threats of physical violence, bullying, or intimidation. Now we're down to the steps in hazard control. Hazard identification and assessment of risk and opportunities. Whether you're a startup or business, there are some simple steps we can take to implement safety hazard system. How work is organized. This includes social factors, leadership, and culture. Routine and non-routine activities and situation. This include the infrastructure, equipment, materials, substance, and physical condition in the workplace. Hazard created in the vicinity of the workplace by a work-related activities. Changes or proposed changes in the organization or its activities. Modification to the ONH management system, including temporary changes and their impact on operation, process, and activities. Changes in knowledge of and information about hazards. Emergency situations, including consideration those who access the workplace, including workers, contractors, visitors, staff, and other persons.
Take note, it is also important to have a process to evaluate how past incident or accident are examined to see what happened or whether the incident or accident could occur again.
Assessment of OH&S and other risks to the OH&S management system. Risk assessment involves the possible results of someone being exposed to a hazard and likelihood of this occurring. Evaluate the impact of the risk and opportunity on the organization's OH&S management system. Determine actions to eliminate and prevent or minimize the risks. Establish the objectives to monitor the impact of the risks.
Assessment of OH&S opportunities and other opportunities for OH&S management system. The process to access the OH&S opportunities to enhance the OH&S performance. Improve the OH&S performance. These include the consideration of hazards and risk, modification of working processes, introduction of new technology, introduction of job safety analysis, improvement of the occupational health and safety cultures, improve OH&S system. These include enhancing the top management visibility, improving the workers' decision making, enhancing the investigation incident process, improve the two-way communication. Lastly, adopting the risk assessment approach.
Now, we're going to move to the hierarchy of the controls. Eliminating hazards and reduction of occupational health and safety risk. The organization will establish a process of achieving reduction in occupational health and safety risk using the following hierarchy of control. First, elimination. Eliminating the hazard can be achieved for removing the hazard or select an alternative product or equipment to remove the risk. Substitution. Substitute by substituting the substance, method, or material to reduce the risk or the hazard. Use engineering control to modify existing machinery or purchase different machinery to provide the physical solution. Implement administrative procedure by developing work methods to reduce the condition of risk and training of staff. Use personal protective equipment on training or in a workplace. Organization shall ensure the occupational health and safety risk and determine controls are taken into account when establishing, implementing, and maintaining its occupational health and safety management system. In this part, we're going to talk about emergency preparedness and response. The organization shall assess OH&S risk associated with emergency situation and establish, implement, and maintain a process to anticipate, prevent, or minimize the OH&S risks from potential emergencies. By identification and planning and provision of first aid, preparation and plan response, periodic testing and exercise of emergency response capability, communicating and providing relevant information to all workers on their duties and responsibility, and communicating relevant information to contractor, visitor, emergency services, government authority, and the local community. The company shall maintain and retain document information for plans for the potential emergency situations.
Understanding how to manage risk in tourism is vital. A crisis often occurs when it is least expected. So, it is important to have a risk management plan in a place that establishes the steps to be taken in the case of a crisis. The development of the plan should follow a clear process to ensure that all tourism stakeholders know what is involved. During the crisis, mitigation, preparedness, recovery, and response are considered to be important in a step of processes to successfully manage a crisis. The tourism industry operates in a dynamic environment that involves many interconnected sectors. As a result, it is constantly evolving and is particularly vulnerable to unexpected crises. Crises come in many forms, including in today's threat like the 2020 global coronavirus pandemic, natural disasters such as earthquakes and floods, political unrest, and terrorist attacks. Such risks and crises pose a significant threat to the tourism industry, destinations, and tour operators working in the sector. In the recent years, there are several major crises, including the bombings and a widespread political unrest in other places in the world during the same year, both of which had a major impact in the tourism industry. Crisis can have a long-term negative impact on a destination, both in terms of the destination's image and visitors' numbers. Planning for the understanding how to manage risk when a crisis occurs and deal with the issues that arises from unforeseen events are key to mitigating the negative effects of a crisis on tourism businesses. Nevertheless, there is a reason to be optimistic. Past events have shown that the tourism industry is resilient, and there is an ample evidence that shows tourists are keen to resume to travel areas once the disaster has passed. Destinations and operators that have prepared well and implemented the best strategies to manage the crisis will be the best position to survive the crisis and welcome visitors again as quickly as possible.